Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning into the Revel TA podcast. This is a special bonus episode with Nate Wylie, founder of Infinite Talent. Let's jump in and enjoy. What drives you as a business owner? Like, what really motivates you right now? There's like a lot of ways to make a living. Why Infinite Talent?
I think the easy answer would be be compensation, but that's not it. I think anyone who's gone into business for themselves understands like you're gonna take a dip. It's you're giving up your stable income, what you built as a professional. Those promotions that you've received to honestly almost start from scratch, which is what I felt like I was doing. I don't know. I really answered the call to build. I think that's what it was, and it was a feeling I had been fighting for a while. Um, Even laying in the bed some nights, just thinking like I need to be doing something different. I want to do something different, and so I had to really muster up the courage to kind of step out on my own and start to um, piece together the really the life I want to live. Like, what do I want to do? Like, what's going to make me happiest? And although I'm busier than ever, have very little time to myself, I know what I'm putting in right now is gonna sort of pay me back over time. And so that's kind of what motivates me is I really want to see, what can I do with my business on my own with me leading it.
Yeah, it's so true. I love that you use the word courage. Sometimes people think entrepreneurship is like synonymous with ego, and that people that want to start their own thing is like, oh, because they want to be their own boss or whatnot. But I think ultimately it's like an act of courage. It's saying, hey, I want to build something. I want to put my name out there. And from a recruiting perspective, like we've been through the ringer the last 18, 20 months with so many people being laid off. I've seen so many people start their own recruiting agency. For me, I like to operate as a place of abundance and cheer those people on. I think it's a good thing for the industry. You've talked about finances earlier and planning ahead financially to take that leap. And I'm right there with you, having started my own shop this year. And you take that like upfront hit
Hmm.
for the incremental gain once the business is flywheeling. And I don't know if you think about it this way, but I'll think about it like, okay, if I can get 2 placements a month at 20% of X average salary, like that is as a business operation, like way exceeding in-house compensation. That's my thesis for why I think some recruiters are willing to take that risk and go out on their own during this economic lull where people aren't really getting hired as recruiters. We're seeing that start to come back a bit end of Q4, but what are your thoughts on some of that in terms of how you plan financially and like that long-term vision and the trends of more really quality in-house recruiters going out on their own?
Yeah, I'm aligned in that way of thinking, and especially anyone who has had any sort of um, interactions with staffing agencies or have outsourced recruiting, whether you're in house and you utilized an RPO to sort of supplement some of your in-house recruiting efforts and understand if you've been involved in vetting those companies and understanding what they're charging, it stings a bit. It's like, wait a minute, we're gonna pay this person how much to make how many hires? And like, I'm doing triple that. Like, and you're just trying to figure out, the math isn't making sense to me as far as like why does my salary look like this, but you're willing to cut a check to this company to do the exact same thing. So yeah, the recruiter that can take that and really have the confidence in themselves that hey, I can go out there, find my own work, make those placements, and be able to charge a fee like that, is a very special person. What I've learned is there are benefits to sitting comfy in house and knowing that you have a paycheck coming and benefits and time off, and someone's going to tell you exactly what you need to do each week. And whereas when you're an entrepreneur, you're really trying to figure out a lot of that yourself. There has been multiple times, you know, over a day or two, I look back and be like, yeah, I was really working on the wrong things. This is what I should have been focused on. This is what's going to push me forward. And so making those little, tiny mistakes each day, each week, and learning from that, and trying to figure out how do I make next week better than this one, next month better than this one. It's all a part of that process. But I am fortunate to, I didn't know when, but I knew it was going to happen at some point. And so I was definitely storing away some nuts for winter for when I jumped out there, just because I didn't want that to be an additional stressor. Like I knew it was already going to be very challenging, even just trying to figure out, what kind of technology I'm going to use, what type of systems I'm going to use, how do I set it up? I just always been given logins to all these different systems. I never implemented one myself. I never had to, figure out how to set up a Google workspace or connect it to a website. So myself, like I'm trying to understand like how to do all these different things, and hopefully I grow my business big enough and fast enough to be able to hire some of this out to other people to free up my time, or bring some people on part time to help me build. But it's a lot, and you have to have several components like your mental, your physical, your finances. All that needs to be aligned in order to really be able to really function at a high level. Is what I'm learning. You need to be. I know you and I have a lot of conversations, and it's a lot of motion, a lot of different things going on. Meet with this person, figure out what this company wants you to do for them, and how can you monetize it, and shooting content, like all these different things that we're doing. It takes up a lot of energy, and so you have to be very intentional about what you're putting your energy into.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned the physical too. There are a lot of times where I'll have like an hour, and in my mind, I've said like that's dedicated for working out, or like that's dedicated for meal prep. And then all of a sudden, I'll find myself like creeping into that hour that I've set aside to take care of the physical, to do some of the motions that are just like at this point, like my nervous system is primed to, whether it's networking or scheduling, or editing, writing content. So it's a good reminder and accountability to like take that time back, because it's equally important, because it has ripple effects for then the output of those business operator functions.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I like to knock mine out first thing in the morning. It gets my day going, and if nothing else, I know I accomplished that. I knocked out my miles, or I did my strength training or something along those lines, and I'm already feel like I'm winning the day.
Yeah, you got to get those wins as a business owner too, and like celebrate the small stuff. You were talking about technology and setting up some of these systems that may look different when you go out on your own versus having like enterprise level contracts when you're in-house. What is your tech stack right now as a solopreneur versus say when you were in-house with like corporate budgets paying for everything?
Yeah, one thing I've learned is not, and maybe that's just the way it's set up for some of these more well-known brands, is you know someone got smart. It's like there are a lot of small companies or solopreneurs who could utilize this technology who doesn't have those big budgets. A lot of dimes can add up to a dollar, I imagine. And so having some of these demo calls, a lot of the technology I use isn't as expensive as I thought it was going to be. And I think, of course, like the quotes aren't in the hundreds of thousands of dollars what they may have been at some of these larger companies I've worked with. But I actually went with Crelate as an ATS, which was new to me. I was just doing some research, but what I really like about it is it's made for more consulting or like agency recruiting. So I'm actually able to track not only candidates, but I'm able to track like sales leads for clients as well, and sort of nurture those same contacts as the way I would a candidate. It is, I'm gonna be honest, it's not as user friendly as I wish it would be, but it's very robust. It does a lot if you take the time to configure it, and optimize it for what you need it to do. Which is another lesson I've learned in being an entrepreneur, is setting up ample time to learn something new. I think I'm the type of person, I like to think, oh, I can knock anything out in 45 minutes or something like that. Whereas now I'm just learning it's going to take me 45 minutes just to, really get in the rhythm of what I'm doing. That's just the beginning. And so now I block off large chunks of time when I need to concentrate on a specific task. I use Seek Out for sourcing, which has been great. I like that it pulls a lot of the email addresses and phone numbers, so I can be a little bit more personal with my reach outs. I also use a tool called Perfect, which is a little newer. I came across them when I was in-house with a startup, and I was looking for a way to multiply my sourcing efforts. And so I like to explain that it's almost like Tinder for sourcing. You put in some skill sets, some experience that's required, and it generates matches for you, and you can, swipe left, swipe right, depending on the profiles it pulls. And the concept is it should learn from what you like and what you don't like, and each batch should be a little bit more aligned than the last. So that's been working for me pretty well. And of course, I have a recruiter light seat. I feel like that's the basics for any recruiter. Google Workspace. And then there's actually, I don't want to drop a name yet just because it's brand new, but a friend of mine has created like his own recruiting analytics tool. I
Nice.
think it's going to be a game changer. And he's given me access to it. And so what I'm trying to do now is build it out for one of my clients specifically. But it gives you real time dynamic recruiting data, and you can create all these dashboards that can be beneficial to a sourcer up to an executive leader. And he's also working on an additional module that's in beta to where, of course, like AI is integrated, and you can ask it to, or you can give it a prompt to say, we need to bring on, I don't know, 5 more engineers in Q2. And what it can do is it can actually analyze recruiting data up to that point and make suggestions as to, how many more recruiters is that going to require, or how many more candidates do you need to source in order to meet those goals, which I think, again, is going to be a game changer. I feel like those are some of the questions leaders is always asking. Business leaders are always asking recruiter leaders, hey, this is what we need to meet. How do we get there? How do we do it? And it's usually a lot of piecing together different data from different systems, and even just asking, recruiting managers, how many recs can your team take on? Like what? So that is going to sort of alleviate a lot of that guesswork, I feel like. So I'm excited for him. I think it's going to be nice when it hits the market.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, I think what you're saying about sampling different tools and being able to get into those betas, it almost lends itself to when you interview an engineer who's like pretty senior and been around a minute, you ask them about their tech stack and they'll give you a pretty straightforward answer of like, oh, I just picked the right tool for the job.
Mm-hmm.
I've been seeing that more with recruiters, particularly folks that have gone through transitions through companies. They've gone out on their own. One of the silver linings, I think, for folks that are in like a budget seat is you get exposure to a lot of the tools in the market versus folks that may have signed a contract 5 years ago with 2 or 3 vendors. They haven't gone through any RIFs, which is, great because they have full-time employment. But they're not bringing on or not working with as many tools in the stack at the velocity and pace, that which a fractional TA person might be doing, or a consultant might be doing. Because now I can imagine like you go to your clients and you're like, oh, here are 10 tools that can solve XYZ. Let's pick the right one for the job.
Yeah,
So
I'm actually just went through an evaluation for ATSs for one of the clients I'm working with, and I try to don't try to waste anyone's time, but that's also a great opportunity for me. Is like, I did want to demo this tool, and now I have a reason, and I can reach out and sort of let them know what I have going on. And of course, no salesperson is going to turn down a demo, right? And so just being able to review all these different tools, and even if I don't sign with them for that particular client, again, I plan to grow my business and work with multiple over time. Now I'm sort of building out my own list of tools I likes and dislikes of each one, and then be able to make those recommendations or suggestions to, even if I'm just meeting with the business leader and they don't want to bring me on as a consultant, I still can give them some suggestions around like some tools they can look into. I'm always trying to be of value to someone else. So if that's all it took was me to give them a few suggestions to point them down the right path, then that works as well.
Yeah, and another silver lining, Nate, like for me has been, in startups, like the last couple of years, it's been pretty heads down. I mean, you work 25, 30 recs, you're screening 10, 15 candidates a day. Like you don't have time for network. I don't have time for, vendor and discovery stuff, like things that I now get to have more enjoyment filling up my bucket, like being able to come
Yeah.
together and have a conversation, being able to go to more events, being able to take that vendor call or like reply to an SDR email. And even reaching out to HR tech founders and just being like, hey, you've been on the scene, would love to see what's going on. Because there's so many changes happening so fast in HR tech, and I'm super excited about it because like if you think about some of the VC capital that went into startups over the last like 5-8 years, it was like data, and then it was like sales and marketing tools.
Hmm.
Now recruiting and HR kind of has a moment in the sun, which is great. From a selling software perspective, our tools are way cheaper than like the markup for like sales and marketing.
Right.
But I'm always surprised too when I talk to a company that's like, oh, like we use this tool and it had 10 licenses and it was corporate contract, but then they're willing to give it to me as an individual at a different price. And that I think really supports the industry and how we as independents can help the HR tech industry grow and how vendors can strengthen relationships with folks like yourself that may not necessarily be top of mind from like an SDR perspective when they're doing their prospect and grooming their top 100 lists. But
Hmm.
if they know they've got an ace in the hole, like there's value that you bring because your network runs so deep.
Yeah.
So those are
I
some thoughts
also
on
like,
it.
yeah, I also enjoy, that's one piece. I think to your point earlier, there are more of us independents out there now that could be potential customers and could create like a whole separate stream of revenue for those larger companies or more legacy systems that may not have looked at us in the past because they were chasing the big fish, right? And one of those large enterprise contracts. But personally, I enjoy working as an independent and sort of being able to demo these different products because I also like to give feedback, what I like and what I don't like, or why I may be choosing to go with a different product because it does X and yours doesn't, or it's more user friendly, or I have to click 4 buttons before I can save a candidate. Any those small things, and what I'm learning is a lot of founders or product owners for some of these HR tech tools didn't have someone with a high level of recruiting experience involved in the actual development of the product, and they're hearing a lot of this for the first time. Whereas when as soon as they go in through the demo, I can immediately see why it won't be adopted or utilized by a recruiter, because it wasn't made with us in mind. They were usually trying to solve for a business leader, or even hate to say it, like maybe like, oh, the candidate's really going to like it. I like, but the candidate's not going to see it if the recruiter doesn't like it. And so you have to figure out like how do we give each person in this process a little win in order for it to be utilized appropriately.
Yeah, that's a good call out. Even tools that are like, 7, 8 years old, maybe that used to be like really popular. Folks might have worked with it for a while, and things have just really advanced in terms of analytics and just like the business acumen of high powered recruiters working in house. So it's cool to see those changes and new products solving the problems that um, might be pain points or bugs in some of the tools that we've used in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But zooming out like holistically, what do you think needs to change in hiring? What are you really optimistic about or passionate about in terms of the impact you can make exponentially, or should I say exponentially?
I've given this a lot of thought. I really, I still don't have it. I don't have a solution to it, but I would love to sort of evolve the interview process in some way. I just feel like it's been exactly the same since I started recruiting 12 years ago. Like and someone may argue like there's really not much you can do, but I feel now with technology coming into play and just how do we make it a little bit more personable, without necessarily prolonging the process, because that's that's always been a huge challenge, right? Like, how do we create like a succinct interview process that allows for the appropriate assessments without wasting anyone's time? And so there are all these different variables and layers to it, where I feel like we just kind of go along with what we know, and still run through the standard interview process of what we always known of, sourcing a candidate, screening a candidate, hiring manager interview, an assessment, and then a panel. Like how do we create like a more, I don't know, more concise, but also make it a little bit more comprehensive, and really get to understand the right fit for this role, given what we know about the company and sort of the appropriate candidate profile that we're bringing in. Again, like that's just always stood out to me, because I think it's true. Like I think when we post a role and there are, hundreds of candidates in there, like we're missing out on some gems. But even as a recruiter, I have to go by what I know, right? And what I'm reading on a resume or what I see on a LinkedIn profile. And everyone's, story to that is, oh, but I'm so much more than my resume, or I'm so much more than my LinkedIn profile. And I have these other skill sets and this other experience that I could bring. And I 100% believe that. And so like, how do we pull that and get that in front of the right people in order to really understand, the impact the person may make to a company outside of how well they can write a resume is what I would like to see change.
Yeah, that is such a great call out. Because I think a lot of the automation right now and what some tools are building with LLMs and AI is so reliant upon the text in a resume for those inputs that people are holistic and they've got experiences and stories that are truly skills based outside of just the projects and the case studies they have from their last 4 or 5 positions that may be relevant to a company.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing I heard you say is just like when we work with founders or executives, it's kind of two things. It's instilling hiring confidence and encouraging those decision makers to hire with conviction so that they don't need the volume of proximity to the decision, aka the number of interviews they've had,
Right.
influence them, but they're extracting the right data. There's nothing more valuable than founder time. It's like I don't see why not to hire somebody in 2 or 3 meetings versus 7 or 8.
Right.
I know one thing I keep seeing is just like people are like fried from the volume of interviews that they've had to go through, especially if you've been through multiple riffs. That means like time dedicated to a search, like year over year. Like that's a lot of energy and it drains people. So one thing I keep hearing people say is like they're done with like these unpaid strategy assignments. So I think there's a way to play to people's strengths because I
Mm-hmm.
know a lot of candidates do like strategy assignments. I know I enjoy them because it allows me to demonstrate like asynchronous written work.
Mm-hmm.
But I know a lot of people are like, well, man, I've done all these. I never get the job. I feel like I just gave away my playbook and I didn't get paid for it. So I don't know if you've got a hot take on strategy assignments or what.
I've been there before, doing assignments for roles, and I don't know. At the end of the day, like I like to tell job seekers, sometimes the process does suck, and but the reward is worth it, and the response will be, but I never get the job, and my response to that is, well, if you don't do the assignment, if you don't apply, like you won't get the job either. So it does suck. I think my mindset is like sometimes you just have to embrace the things you don't like, if you're working towards something. And the higher up you go on the pay scale, you got to understand, like if someone's looking to invest, 125, 150, 180K in you annually, yeah, like they feel like, yeah, I can get a little peek into your work to make sure we're making the right decision. And so with that being said, I kind of don't, I don't necessarily have a disdain for them. At the same time, I think it should be measured. I think the time you're asking someone to put into it should be realistic. Now, that's one thing I do agree with. This assignment shouldn't take, you know, half a day to complete. Like, it's, oh, wait a minute, I think we can trim that down a little bit and still get an idea of this person's capability. So that's how I've always tried to manage those situations with a business leader or a hiring manager that wants to make sure we're including some sort of assignment as a vetting tool. But yeah, like, sometimes you just gotta, I don't know, just muster up the strength to get it done and push forward. And again, like, this is, you have to learn from everything. And so the more you're doing these assignments, the more comfortable you should get with them. And especially if there's any feedback that you're given as to maybe it fell short, which is why you didn't get the role, or someone else came with a different perspective, and was able to provide a sort of more innovative ideas around it. It kind of gets your wheels turned as well. So I try to turn everything into a value add.
Totally. Um, Staying on this theme of maybe controversial ideas or concepts, you're a creator, you have a tremendous following, you post something, you get thousands of engagements overnight. Um, what do you do, like, or maybe you have any examples of like people coming at you with like a lot of criticism, whether it's on the candidate side or the like client side with an employer, when you're talking around things sensitive about like compensation, career growth, because like not everybody that you have follow you is like a tech bro making 100K. um, and like we don't operate in a vacuum when we're in tech, and I'm sure that's even exponential for you as a creator.
Yeah. Yeah, people have left like little spicy comments on a post before. I really try not to engage, and no one's said anything like super crazy. I don't feel like, but I usually just, if it's, I feel like if their comment is coming from a place where they don't have context, I'll provide the context as to why I said that. If it's just coming from, they just, 100% don't agree with my way of thinking or what I'm saying, that's fine. I don't expect people to. I don't agree with what other people say, and so that's not really a reason for me. And I'm not going to, go into a bunch of back and forth. But I think, I would like to think everyone has an open mind, myself included. And so even if I read a comment or a post that I don't agree with, I usually run to the comment section to try to understand, what are other people thinking? Are they aligned with me and thinking, okay, like, this is crazy? Or are they giving thumbs up and celebration to the post because they're in alignment with it, which again gets my wheels turning, like, okay, maybe I've been looking at this wrong, or maybe there's new information that I don't know. Again, trying to really turn every situation into, how can I add value to myself, my business, or my network, people I interact with. If I learn something new that contradicts something I've said before, let me correct myself. I was completely wrong on that. Um, but yeah, I don't get into a bunch of the bickering online or anything like that. It's just, I don't know. I'm too blessed. I don't want to. I don't want to get into that back and forth and just negative energy. Honestly, because there are some people out there who just like to, get some stuff stirred up, and that's just not me.
Yeah, yeah, same. I always remember, try to remind myself, like, I have the choice to not have an opinion on everything.
Hmm.
And I forget who said that. It's like some, Greek philosopher or whatever. Um, oh, you know what? It's the Stoicism guy, Marcus Aurelius. He's having a moment right now. I don't know if you've picked up on everybody talking about Stoicism lately, but yeah, like you don't have to have an opinion on everything.
It's funny you mentioned that. I've been binging the Stoicism videos on YouTube, like, back to back. I've always been a fan of it, but like you say, like, it's definitely top of mind right now for a lot of people. So I've kind of jumped back into it.
Dude, I'm like an animated communicator. I'm a like extrovert. I'm out here in my basement, so it's like these conversations bring energy to my day. But I
Hmm.
always try to like tone down my personality on online, or if I'm like on a Zoom call. But I actually have like this note card that sits
Hmm.
in front of my computer that says, "Breathe, be cool, stoicism." But it's funny because then like I'll try to be like stoic, and it's just like, nah, that's not me. I'm a
Yeah,
resident hype man.
people. A manager gave me some feedback a long time ago, and I'm gonna be honest with you. When he said, I didn't. I had to go Google it. He was like, "Mate, you're real stoic." I was like, the context, it was positive. So I was like, thank you. But I really didn't have a clear idea of what that meant. And then I went and looked it up. I was like, okay, I'll take that. Yeah, I'm usually pretty even keel. I try not to swing one way or the other too much. Even when something's great going on, I don't get too excited. If something's terrible going on, I try not to get too down. So I try my best to stay middle of the road.
Whatever you're doing, man, it's working. What I couldn't imagine what you would want more from a recruiter, or recruiting leader than somebody who's even keeled, steady hand at the wheel. That's awesome. I'm really rooting for you. As we wrap this up, are you going into the new year with any plans for your business, how you're growing Infinite Talent, how people can stay connected, anything like that?
Plans is to keep grinding. I think that's I think that's the only plan I have right now. There are I do want to get a lot more mindful and intentional with my time. I have some great prospects for clients coming up right now, and so I really want to dive deep and make sure I'm giving them a premium experience for me as a consultant. This is a lot of this is new territory for me, and it's one of those things where I have to remind myself of that, but at the same time, not use it as an excuse not to be great at it, if that makes sense. New Year, I want to go to SourceCon. I want to start creating like a calendar of certain events I want to hit, just so I can be a little bit more mindful of my marketing budget, I guess. Like a lot of the events I went to this year, I found out about them late, but I was like, I'm gonna go anyway, and spent way too much on tickets and airfare and stuff. So getting ahead of it and understanding what the events are coming up, and getting those early bird deals is probably gonna be a little bit more beneficial to me. Um, but nah, other than that, LinkedIn, of course, Nate Wylie. They can follow me on Instagram at Career Hacker Nate. That's primarily about career development and confidence, and I throw some funny stuff in there from time to time as well.
Awesome, man. Well, rooting for you. Great to have you. It's one of many conversations that we'll continue to have and record, hopefully. And for anybody that tuned in, thanks so much. Please tune again for more conversations with top people and talent leaders. Here at Revel TA, we're about empowering the candidate-employer relationship in the future of work. So long for now. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Revel TA podcast. If you're a talent acquisition leader or a recruiter looking for a conference to attend in 2024, I'm here to tell you that RecFest is the world's largest talent acquisition conference. RecFest USA returns to Nashville, Tennessee on September 12th and 13th, 2024, and I am stoked. This is not your average conference. Shout out to Jamie Leonard and the entire crew over at RecFest who produce an incredible event. Tickets are on sale now. Don't sleep. I'll see you in Nashville.